sometimes it feels like that speed bump is a mountain, and perhaps it feels like a mountain you'll never overcome. Hello team. Unfortunately, I'm still sick and I'm not feeling too sexy and free right now. But we persist and we power through because things need to be done on the line today. Also, I actually very much appreciate all of you giving me some tips and tricks in the comment section of the previous video regarding what I could do to help with this sickness. As in, speaking of comment sections, I'll tell you what's been a little bit surreal for me recently. Basically, I'm scrolling through the old YouTube machine, I'm doing my thing, I see videos from other creators I follow, all these bits and bobs. I'm scrolling through Brianna's comment section and I see TFNL being name dropped in there. Love to see it. I get a few messages on the Discord or on Instagram saying, oh, you've popped up in this comment section. And it's just really nice to us. It's actually, I would say, it's borderline surreal seeing like my name and like the brand of TFNL popping up in comment sections, especially in the comment section of established creators and creators I follow. It's nice to see that the community is growing, and it's nice to see that the name is spreading. So again, I do really appreciate that, thank you. But unfortunately, things aren't all fine and dandy, I'm afraid. So I got a comment a few weeks ago. Unfortunately, I've lost the comments, I can't show you. But it was someone saying how you speak about the positive sides of fitness and how great it is, all that stuff. But would you ever consider touching on the negatives of fitness and the fitness world and maybe YouTube, whatever it may be, speaking about different things that could negatively impact our mental health, such as injuries, etc, etc. I thought it was a really good idea. I thought it was a great video idea, but nothing had really occurred that would prompt me to engage in this discussion, and unfortunately until recently when things have occurred. Instead of starting this video with the usual, like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz, I think due to the nature of this video, it's probably more appropriate if we don't go down that route and maybe just have a discussion, and that's what we're going to do today. So there will be no like goal or any of that jazz, and there will also be no hat, because again, I don't think it's appropriate considering the nature of this video. But what there will be is a trigger warning. This video is very much going to touch on mental health and a few things that have happened within the industry that I feel need to be discussed, and exactly what that comment suggested I speak about, the maybe kind of negatives and downsides of the fitness industry and the online world that maybe aren't necessarily discussed. A lot of the topics I will be mentioning are likely going to be very triggering for many of you. And again, I sound like a broken record, but I probably always will, because let's be honest, I do repeat myself a lot. Firstly, there is no rush to ever watch any video I produce. I understand a lot of you want to get here quickly, which I do obviously love and really appreciate. But if you see a video pop up that I've created that you feel might be potentially triggering for you and you're not quite ready to watch it yet, there is no rush, it's not going anywhere. But in addition to that, if you see a video I've created and you feel, you know what, that's not a video I feel is wise for me to watch, I'd rather you not watch it. If you decide based on where you are right now that it's not good or wise of you to embark on this journey and have this discussion because it may be triggering or upsetting for you, please again click off the video. Don't worry about like it, don't worry about any of that jazz, just click off, put something else on. And obviously, because it is a mental health related video, there are going to be some useful resources linked down below in the description should you feel that you would benefit from clicking on them. Like I said, I know I speak about the good and the positive sides of fitness which is very fair for me to do so, because I think there are many fantastic things that come out of the fitness industry and the online community. But unfortunately, and as the comment did suggest, there are a lot of negatives that people maybe don't speak about, and that's what we're going to do here. We're going to have a discussion. One of the points that this individual made when they left that comment was the realities of things like injuries and how negative this could be to our mental health. Many of you watching this video right now are obviously very interested and probably passionate about fitness to some degree, be that hypertrophy training, strength training, CrossFit, functional fitness, health and fitness, anything it may be. You are likely interested in fitness, and it probably is a very important part of your life, and it's probably an aspect of life that many of you feel like you couldn't imagine life without it. What happens when sometimes we do have to live without fitness to some extent, or what happens if our fitness journey is negatively impacted or maybe put on pause temporarily due to injury? And this kind of goes into a couple of things I want to mention, and we're going to start with a very sad story. So an individual who has been very popular in the fitness industry and somebody who who I really used to follow a lot when I was younger. I actually ran into him in LA in 2015, but was too anxious and nervous to say hi to him. A guy called Calum Von Moger has recently been popping up on the news due to a lot of bad things that have been happening. He's unfortunately, it seems like he's gone down quite a drastic and substantial mental health spiral and decline, and it's hard to see, it's hard to watch, and it's sad to see. Some of this is not confirmed, it's just what the industry is telling us. And recent events is that Calum was a very young, upcoming and promising kind of fitness star, to some extent almost comparable to Chris Bumstead at one point, has unfortunately had a bit of a time. He's done a few things in the past recently that have been very questionable that I won't get into, but more recently it's been reported that he has perhaps jumped out of a second-story window and is now in intensive care due to a potential spine injury and is potentially in a coma, and they feel like this act may have been actually an attempt at taking his own life, unfortunately, a suicide attempt, which is devastating to hear. It's horrible, because I feel like unfortunately quite a few of us have either dealt with suicide personally, be that attempts perhaps, be that tendencies, be that thoughts, whatever it may be, or through a friend or a family member. We can kind of begin to understand how hard it must be to deal with seeing somebody else go through something like that. And some of us may unfortunately understand to some extent how hard it is to go through that personally. If you've watched my 30,000 subscriber Q&A, which is obviously on the homepage of my channel, you probably understand a bit more about my mental health history, which I won't get into in this video because again I don't want to repeat myself too much. It's hard because, like I said, Calum is somebody I followed for many years, or had followed for many years, and to hear him, somebody who was so notable in the industry and somebody who was so established, to be going through such a thing, reminds you that influencers, creators, whatever they may be, are still people. And I think sometimes we often forget that. And a lot of people have questioned, saying, I wonder why this started, and I wonder what's contributed to this. And again, we don't know, we can merely speculate. But Calum's had a very unfortunate history. So Calum got a really nasty bicep tear when he was training with Chris Bumstead a few years ago, which again really negatively impacted his career, I'm sure. But then he also tore his quad and got a really nasty injury there, which again probably set him back quite heavily. And I think that's why I wanted to kind of touch on injuries, is many of you at home, like I said, are very passionate about fitness. Fantastic. I myself am personally. The thought of anything occurring that could potentially take that away from me is quite frightening. Although you can in many cases work around lots of injuries, fantastic, you can't always. Although I'm not saying this is what has caused it, these injuries that Calum has faced may have contributed to this mental health spiral he's unfortunately going down. And I think it's all too easy for people on the sidelines to kind of just say, well, it's just an injury, it will heal. Sure, it will heal eventually, but sometimes injuries never fully heal. Sometimes you're never the same again. And other times when you've hit such a speed bump in your journey, sometimes it feels like that speed bump is a mountain, and perhaps it feels like a mountain you'll never overcome. I mean, going into personal experiences with this is many years ago now, I herniated one of my discs, my L4, L5 disc, and that threw me off training properly for multiple years. I couldn't squat or deadlift without being in immense amounts of pain. If I did squat or deadlift, I would have to fully acknowledge there's a high chance I would be in a lot of pain afterwards. There's a high chance I may not be able to do it again for weeks and weeks and weeks. And it got to the point, unfortunately, at one point, because I was refusing to give my body the chance it needed to recover, because in all honesty I didn't think it was ever going to heal. I kind of felt, let's try and power through as best as I can. I couldn't brush my teeth in the morning without having to take painkillers because I was incapable of bending over, because I was getting such horrendous morning inflammation around my disc. If I tried to bend over, oftentimes I would collapse into the sink. That probably had far more of a negative impact on my mental health than I probably ever let on, because again, training was such a fundamental aspect of my life, and at the time I was pursuing competitive powerlifting. To know that 2 of the 3 lifts I was going to get tested on, I was not able to actually complete successfully and pain-free, it was quite scary, it was quite daunting, and it kind of got to the point where I very much contemplated surgery. Thankfully I didn't go down that route because I have a fantastic physio who prevented that from happening, but it got to the point where I was so down and sad about how I was feeling, being in physical pain all the time, that I felt, you know what, surgery will probably make things a lot worse temporarily, but it may fix the problem long term. And you think about, okay, well that's injuries. What else in the fitness industry is something that people need to understand can actually have quite a negative impact on us? And I think a big thing which many of you are probably thinking right now is relationships with food. And this has been something I've touched on many times in the past, and it's something that I feel like it needs to be spoken about more. When calories and food intake and consumption are such a fundamental part of fitness, it's very understandable how easy it is for people to develop unhealthy relationships with food and negative associations with food, because food becomes almost like a controlling factor of their life, where a lot of people feel like this variable of perhaps food intake is going to be partly responsible responsible to whether they achieve their goals or not. Again, another unfortunate example of this is an individual who, and again unfortunately passed recently, called Scott Murray, who was an Irish YouTuber. He was known for doing these insane low-calorie, high-volume eating days, high caloric expenditure, feats of exercise and things along those lines, which a lot of people do suspect may have contributed to him unfortunately passing. And he had unfortunately dealt with an eating disorder previously. And again, these are things that people don't speak about because these are things that a lot of times people don't understand, which I completely acknowledge, and I think that's fair enough. But what I wanted to do was have this discussion about identifying things that could really negatively impact us and perhaps what we can do to prevent them and other things to maybe be aware of. So for example, a lot of individuals, obviously watching this now, you are on social media. YouTube is a social media platform. You are engaging in social media content. The big thing people neglect to realize there is that social media is a highlight reel, and I will preach that all the time. You go on Instagram, you see people doing a squat, a bench, or a deadlift, whatever it may be. They're showing you their best set more often than not. You see a photo of an individual, they're probably showing you the best photo of 100 different photos. I mean, everything is a highlight reel, because why would you not want to present the world, the internet space with your best of something? That then obviously causes us to engage in a lot of social comparisons. Again, I speak about this all the time, Festinger, 1954, social comparison theory, in which upward social comparisons are kind of discussed, in which you kind of compare yourself to an individual or individuals you deem to be superior to yourself, thus negatively impacting your self-esteem and self-perceptions. If social media is a world filled with highlights, you sometimes can't help but compare yourself to the world around you and what you're seeing. You look at an individual online, you think, I wish I was as strong as this individual. I wish I looked as good as this individual. I wish I was as lean as this individual. I wish I went on holidays like this individual. It's very easy for us to forget what we have, where we are and how far we've come, and it's very easy for us to think about where we wish we were. If something makes you feel bad about yourself, if something makes you feel bad about how far you've come, if something makes you lose sight of the progress you've made, it's probably not worth consuming. Consume more of the things that make you feel better, that enhance you, not the things that hinder you. Oftentimes we neglect, well, what can we do to prevent this from happening? Obviously, I've just spoken about engaging and consuming more positive content or content that positively impacts you. Remember to be grateful of how far you've traveled along this journey, because fitness is a journey. We're all making progress. We all have our goal and we want to get there, and we'll probably set a new goal. It's a progressive, continuous journey. Just because you're not where you want to be right now doesn't mean you won't get there in the future, but it also doesn't mean that you should forget to remember how far you've traveled to get to where you are right now. If you're not feeling good about something, you're not feeling good about your progress, remember your why. Why did you start this journey, and why are you continuing this journey? I mean, there's a reason you're embarking on this fitness journey, so what is it? And also, please don't forget to use your support network. Your friends, your family members, people that care about you, this community that cares about you. So speaking to people in the comment section, reach out in the DMs, reach out to me in the DMs, whatever it may be, interacting with people who care about you and want to see you thrive. Although, again, in many cases, if you are feeling a certain way, we may not necessarily be able to fix the problem. We can certainly do all we can to at least help. But then flip it around. Fitness has a lot of positives behind it. The social media space has a lot of positives behind it. Again, obviously I've spent a lot of this video now speaking about the negatives that people often neglect to think about, but what about the positives? I mean, social media has essentially removed geographical limitations between relationships. Many of you are thousands of miles away in other countries, which I think is amazing, because of this social media platform that I have, I can speak to you. People that I maybe would have never interacted with otherwise. But then on top of that, I'm now engaging with people who are so like-minded and who are part of a community that we're building together. It is a privilege that I can never ignore, and I would never want to ignore, because essentially I've been given a platform which I still find very surreal, where I can share my interest in fitness and psychology with people who actually value, for whatever reason that may be, what I have to say and my opinion. Because at the end of the day, like I said, training is such a fundamental part of my life. I've been doing it for over 10 years now. I can't really imagine what life would be without it, and nor would I ever want to imagine what life would be without it. And this is why I'm kind of very specific and careful with my approach to things, because you never know what other people are dealing with, you never know what they've overcome, you never know what they're going through right now, which is why I always kind of preach about be empathetic, enhance lives and don't hinder them. Although we don't tolerate nonsense here, and if something is deserving of being discussed, we will discuss it, but we can also understand why it's being promoted. We also understand why the content creator is doing what they are doing, and we also understand that we don't need to hate but instead we should educate. Again, I know I've gone off on a bit of a waffle, a bit of a tangent. I just wanted to kind of discuss the potential negative sides of the fitness industry people don't speak about, such as the impact it could have on your mental health due to maybe unhealthy relationships, over-reliance, obsession, things along those lines, things that I am unfortunately very guilty of myself. But again, it's a discussion that needed to be had, especially considering what's occurred in recent months. And hopefully having said discussion will help us all better understand what people might be going through, will help us all better understand how we can maybe help those around us if possible, if they are experiencing something like an injury or something similar, and also help us better understand what we can do as individuals when setbacks like an injury happen. For example, understanding that it is merely a speed bump, it is not a mountain, and that speed bump will be overcome eventually. While you're doing so, you can try and work around it. You can try and focus on other facets of fitness. Fitness doesn't have to be whatever you are doing right now. If you can't lift weights for whatever reason, what can you do instead? Could you learn more about optimizing your programming for when you return? Could you work on maybe your mobility a bit more? Although you've hit this halt temporarily, you've traveled so far to get here in the first place, all is not lost. There are so many things we can consider, and again, I say it all the time, and I do acknowledge that I'm very behind on DMs at the moment, and it's my fault. I'm currently in the process of catching up, but if anyone does ever need somebody to speak to, my DMs are always open. Although I may be slow at times, I will always read and I will always respond to my DMs as soon as I'm able to. Sorry, I really have waffled. I didn't want this to be a big waffle, but it kind of has been a big waffle. We will crack on with comment question of the week very quickly. This is a very relevant one considering I've been sick recently. Do you still keep your gym schedule while having a cold, or do you take a break until you recover, as they're going through some period of sickness themselves? If I feel I'm sick and I'm unwell, like a flu or something along those lines, I will rest, I will recover. Well, I won't make up for it, I won't do any of that jazz. I will take it as a rest day, probably a few rest days, and I will use that opportunity to recover, because you are going to do no good trying to power through sickness. Your recovery will be negatively impacted, and you may indeed actually risk injury. So many things to consider. It's better for you to give your body the chance it needs to rest and recover, so then you can get back to training 100% as soon as possible, which hopefully won't be that long. And I know you mentioned to go on about feeling guilty. I understand, because I too have felt guilty about this myself. If you are feeling guilty about having to take a rest day due to mental health reasons, due to sickness, due to work, whatever it may be, this is not due to laziness, this is due to maybe other priorities in life, or it's due to recovery and illness. And that taking this rest day will not harm you. Gains will not be lost, progress will not be lost. You're merely taking a step back for a day, a few days, to recover, give your body the chance it needs to rest and replenish, so you can tackle things head on as soon as possible, thus optimizing your performance and helping you achieve your goals as safely, efficiently and quickly as possible. But like I said, that is the video, and we're not going to do all the usual bits and bobs that I would normally do. I just wanted to have this discussion and maybe give my thoughts and opinions and things, and just maybe even hear your thoughts down below in the comment section if you are willing to share them. Thank you for tolerating me. Thank you for tolerating my lingering sickness, we'll say, and lack of hat. And thank you for tolerating the video.